Hello, so today I'll be discussing how different types of sugars affect energy levels. So in this study, I studied the effects of refined and natural sugars on energy levels. And the independent variables were the natural and refined sugars, the dependent variables, the energy levels, and the control variables were the caloric and sugar intake plus the amount of hours slept. So for caloric intake, it was 2,000, sugar intake, 50 grams, and sleep 9 hours. So the question was, how does refined sugars affect energy levels? So it was hypothesized that refined sugars will cause participants to feel low in energy because the body will quickly make use of the sugar and cause a sudden spike in energy, but then decrease. It's kind of like whenever you eat a lot of sugar, you have a sugar rush, and you're very hyper, and then you suddenly crash at the end of the day. And then the second question was, how does natural sugar affect energy levels? So this was hypothesized that natural sugars will cause an increase in energy levels because the body will digest the sugar and more slowly, allowing for the energy to last longer throughout the day. And something that supports this hypothesis was the article Glia, Silent Partners in Energy Homeostasis and Obesity Pathogenesis. So in this article, it was mentioned that high fatty diets, they tend to have a lot of refined sugars, and this affects energy homeostasis due to the delayed response of the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus is responsible for controlling a lot of things such as like energy homeostasis, how often you're hungry, how often you're thirsty. So whenever there's like damage or delayed response to this, it can cause one to feel more drained. It can cause one to feel hungrier. It just causes an imbalance. And the purpose of the study was to compare the effects of refined and natural sugars on energy levels, determine which sugar is more efficient in completing tasks, and then determine how effectively it gets one through the day. So the methods, I used one participant myself, healthy female, did not have any eating disorders, it could keep a steady sleep schedule, and bodily functions worked properly. And it was imperative to have someone who was healthy without any disorders or any diseases because it could skew results. For example, if participant had diabetes, first 3 days of the study, the participant was placed on a high refined sugar diet, and sugar can be very addicting, so that could easily cause issues with the participants when we don't want that. Also, like someone with eating disorders, like bulimia, anorexia, that could be, we want to be sure that these participants would be following the procedures of this experiment, or it could cause them damage too. So it was better to just make sure to have someone who has healthy body, who doesn't have any like um, issues with their health. Also, it was imperative to keep a steady sleep schedule. If sleep schedule was not maintained, um, that could also skew results just because if you don't get enough sleep, that also affects your energy. So it was imperative to keep a steady sleep schedule because um, it will allow for the energy to be measured just solely from the sugars that are being studied right now. So the steps were after eating, participants had to fill out a nutritional data sheet, and that helped them keep track of their caloric and sugar intake throughout the day. And as mentioned before, the first 3 days they were on a refined sugar diet, while the last 3 days they were on a natural sugar diet. And here's the link to the nutritional data sheet. And then after the participant filled out their nutritional data sheet, they had to fill out their energies from 1 through 10. And this from a scale that was found on a peer review article. And they had to rate their scales like their energy from when they woke up, before after work, before after exercise, before after homework, and then at the end of the day. And then they had to add up all of their energies. And the lower number, the higher the energy, and then the higher the number, the lower the energy. So if someone got like a 30 versus a 25, 30 indicates that they have lower energy, 25 they had higher energy that day. Lastly, after participants filled out the data sheet, they had to answer questions assessing their energy throughout the whole day. And here are the link to the questions and energy scale. And for the statistical test used was the correlation to statistical test, which was used to determine the relationship between sugar and energy levels, and the SPSS software was used to analyze the data. Okay, so on the bar graph, the x-axis demonstrates the amount of sugar that was taken, and then the y-axis, the energy levels. So the taller the bar, that means the lower the energy they had the day, and then the shorter the bar, that means the higher the energy they had the day. So right here, the bars, this was whenever the participant was on refined sugar diet, and then this was when participant was on natural sugar diet. And it's the same thing. This is energy levels versus caloric intake. So right here, down here, the x-axis shows the caloric intake, and right here shows the energy levels. First 3 days refined sugars, the last 3 days natural sugars. And the statistics, so for the data to be significant, the p-value had to be equal or less than 0.05. To have a strong correlation, it had to equal 1. So for our p-value, calorie to energy was 0.087, sugar to energy was 0.087. Correlation, calorie to energy, negative 0.749, sugar to energy was negative 0.749. So in conclusion, my hypothesis was rejected just because I got a p-value of 0.087. And as mentioned previously, in order for the data to be significant, it had to be equal or less than 2.05. So my hypothesis was rejected. And then, however, my data did demonstrate kind of like a strong negative correlation. According to Pearson, the R value, in order to be a strong correlation, is negative 0.8. I got a negative 0.749, so it does demonstrate a strong negative correlation. And if you look at the bars, like the bar graph, you can kind of see how it's a strong negative correlation. So overall findings, as you saw the bar graph, it shows that refined sugars cause lower energy than natural sugars. The taller the bar, the lower the energy, and then the shorter the bar, the higher the energy. And you saw that on the graph. And then whenever I was assessing the energy throughout the days, it demonstrated that it was easier to focus on tasks when I was on the natural sugar diet than whenever I was on the refined sugar diet. Also, I found that I was not as hungry whenever I was on the on the natural sugar diet than I was on the refined sugar diet. I found whenever I was on the refined sugar diet, I was more hungrier and I craved more of that sugar, which happens whenever you're on a high sugar diet. So my results were not significant, and this could be because of inconsistency with variables, such as my caloric and sugar intake. Remember at the beginning I mentioned that my control variables were calories and sugar. I had to take 2,000 calories per day and then 50 grams per day. And it was very hard for me to control that. So it did cause kind of skewed results because we don't know if I got those results because of the sugar or because of how much sugar I took that day and the different calories that I consumed that day. Also, low number of participants. Results cannot really be accurate with just one participant. If there was more than one, it could accurately demonstrate if the sugars actually cause lower or higher energy. So to improve results, I would actually get more participants, and then I'd be stricter with the variables, such as before I start the experiment, set up a meal plan with already all the sugar and calories calculated, and the participants would just have to follow that meal plan and everything would be accurate. And then, although my hypothesis was rejected and my results were not significant, there has been other studies who have been successful in proving this. So there was one study that found that natural sugars contain glucose while refined sugars contain fructose and sucrose. And they concluded that glucose improved energy levels because the hypothalamus prefers it. And then another study found that diets with high fatty and sugar content were consumed more frequently to increase energy levels. This study, they used like snacks with like high sugar, and they found that participants, they consumed the snacks more often whenever it had a higher refined sugar content, because they felt more drained, so they needed that extra energy booster. They kept consuming that sugar in order to help boost their energy. And yeah, that's all I have. Thank you so much for watching.